Did you know that unlike many other famous automobile brands, Ferrari is first and foremost a car racing company, then a vehicle manufacturer? The Italian automaker has participated in races around the world and won more than 5,000 prizes since its inception. The business is legendary for not just being the oldest and most successful racing team in Formula One, but Ferrari road vehicles are an expression of wealth, luxury, and speed. However, the company wasn't always the premium name it is today, and the early days of the company were rather modest. The details of its ancestry is filled with a long string of innovation that has led to its current level of car-making excellence. So stay tuned as we take you through the fascinating history of the iconic brand. It's impossible to discuss the origin of Ferrari without mentioning Enzo Ferrari, the company's illustrious founder, who the auto company is named after. Enzo was a brilliant Italian race car driver who was born in Italy in 1898. In the 1920s, he was hired by Alfa Romeo, another Italian automaker with a long racing history. Enzo served as the manager of Alfa Romeo's racing division, purchasing, preparing, and fielding Alfa Romeo race cars for gentlemen drivers. In 1929, Enzo decided with his engineer friends and auto enthusiasts to launch the Scuderia Ferrari under Alfa Romeo. The Scuderia was initially intended to be a team of owner-drivers who prepared vehicles for competition and assisted those who raced them, but it eventually morphed into a formal team of professional drivers. Alfa Romeo did not view the new division as a competition, but as an opportunity to participate in numerous races and preserve its reputation as a racing entity, despite no longer desiring to be directly involved. So, Alfa Romeo discontinued its internal racing team in 1933, and Scuderia Ferrari replaced it as the company's works team. Led by Ferrari-prepared 8C2300, Alfa Romeo dominated the top 10 positions at the Miglia in 1933. However, despite Ferrari's it factor and years of success, things went south and ultimately led to a contentious split in 1938. One of the requirements Alfa Romeo placed on Enzo when he left the company was that he not use the name Ferrari in any of his vehicles or racing organizations for at least 4 years. Enzo agreed with this arrangement and established Auto Avio Costruzioni shortly thereafter. In 1940, the business built its first Ferrari automobile ever, the Tipo 815. However, the Second World War broke out and all racing activities came to an abrupt halt. As a result of the war, Auto Avio Costruzioni relocated from Modena to Maranello in the latter half of 1943 and has remained there ever since. During the period of the war, the company focused on producing machine tools, although Enzo continued to plan for future racing car production. The result of his hard work? The 125S. After the war ended, Enzo was able to use his name on his vehicles again, and he rolled out the 1,500 cubic centimeter 12-cylinder Ferrari 125S, which was the first vehicle to carry the Ferrari name. A few days after its debut, it competed at the city's Terme de Caracalla circuit, winning the Rome Grand Prix that year. That marked just the beginning, as the marque thrived in the following decades, with its vehicles competing in and taking first place in notable events like the Formula One World Championship Grand Prix, the Le Mans 24-hour race, and the Miglia. The brand released its first non-racing model of this vehicle in 1948. The Gran Turismo model had a roof, windows, heaters, and a leather interior. These cars were handcrafted with classic Italian craftsmanship and design by traditional Italian artisans. Then, distributors received these cars in groups of no more than 10 at a time. The owner would then make the final choice regarding the exterior trim, paint color, and upholstery once the car was delivered to its owner. This was the norm for a while, and all of the company's vehicles were built using this technique, ensuring that no two vehicles were exactly alike. Models produced during the period are extremely rare and unique, thus they fetch quite a lot of money on the vintage car markets today. Even now, the majority of the company's models are supply limited, and the number it sells is determined by how many it can produce, rather than by the number of people who wish to purchase a car. The Ferrari showroom and dealership was launched in the early 1950s in the United States, and up until that point, Ferraris were primarily only used by wealthy racing enthusiasts. Due to its success, there was an excessively high demand for Ferrari automobiles. The US Ferrari market quickly rose to prominence and remains among the most lucrative in the world. In 1957, the carmaker changed its name from Auto Avio Costruzioni to Autocostruzioni Ferrari, and much later became Ferrari Spa in 1989. The period of the 60s was very transitory for the company. First, in 1961, the company lost some key employees, particularly the chief engineers, Carlo Citti and Giotto Bizzarini, who had been very instrumental in helping Enzo build the brand. Additionally, the 60s was also the period the brand became distinct for the red color of its vehicles. Previously, international motor racing vehicles from Italy had to be painted red per regulation. However, after it was deemed no longer necessary, Ferrari insisted on keeping the color because they wanted to uphold the custom. Ferrari red is so closely associated with the brand that at least 85% of owners had Ferrari red cars in the 1990s. In the late 1960s, Enzo decided he needed a partner to continue to be successful and expand in the face of competition and market challenges. This coincided with the time American car manufacturer Henry II of Ford was in the market looking to spread its reach into the car-making world. The failure of their negotiations was what resulted in the most bitter rivalry in auto racing history as we know it. After several months of negotiations, a deal appeared to be in reach in the spring of 1963. Ford would offer Enzo Ferrari $1 million in exchange for his company and all of its assets. However, at the last minute, Enzo objected to a section in the agreement that stated Ford would be in charge of the finances and thus all decisions affecting the Ferrari racing team. Enzo was adamant about maintaining control of the motorsports division of his business. He told the Ford representatives that he would never sell on those terms or to an ugly company that produces ugly cars in an ugly factory. He allegedly also insulted Henry II personally by suggesting that he couldn't compete with his real grandfather, Henry Ford. Enzo later then sold a majority stake in Ferrari to fellow Italian automaker Fiat, which served as an additional insult. At the time, neither Ford nor its parent company, General Motors, had any plans to produce a sports car, but to gain his pound of flesh, Ford decided to develop a sports car that would disgrace Ferrari in the event that mattered the most to him, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Ultimately, the rivalry brought out the fiercest of both companies and gave Auto World some of the most ingenious inventions ever made till today. But back to Ferrari. After Fiat purchased a 50% stake in the company at the start of 1969, the first immediate outcome was an increase in the amount of investment capital that was available. Right away, they began construction on a factory expansion to move up production and also increased investment in the new models at the top of the Ferrari range. The result of the investment led to the company's increased success. Sadly, the legendary Enzo Ferrari passed away at the age of 90 in 1988. But before his death, the Ferrari F40 was the latest new Ferrari model to be introduced. A few decades later, Ferrari introduced and called its fastest model at the time, Enzo, after the company's founder. The Enzo was originally intended to be called the F60, next in line after the F40 and F50. However, it was so cutting edge, they decided to proudly name it after the late Mark founder. Each of the 399 produced had a price tag of $650,000, and the final 400th was donated to the Vatican for charity. With the primary goal of making Ferrari an independent brand, Ferrari's parent company, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, announced plans to separate its luxury brand from its core business in 2014, and Ferrari NV filed for an IPO in 2015. Up until this point, the brand had won several racing accolades such as 14 sports car manufacturers' world championships, 15 F1 Drivers' World Championships, 16 F1 Constructors' World Championships, 9 Le Mans 24-hour wins, 8 Mille Miglia wins, 7 Targa Florio wins, and 216 wins in F1 Grand Prix. From its long and rich history, it is hardly surprising that the automaker is one of the most successful in the world, with a market cap of over $52 billion. So tell us, after learning about its illustrious history, would you like to own a Ferrari? Also, if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our channel for more awesome content.